Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optics Podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and today I'll be discussing the recent 4K Blu-ray release of Steven Spielberg's classic film, The Color Purple. And I would like to express my gratitude to Warner Brothers for providing me with a review copy of this disc specifically for this podcast episode. And as always, before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to our show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at Film Optics. That is optics with an X, or you can email us at filmoptics@gmail.com for any movie or television related questions. So as I mentioned on today's review, today's 4K review, I'm going to be giving my thoughts and opinions on the 4K release of The Color Purple. As of right now, you can buy this at your local retail store, whether that be Best Buy, Amazon, Target, Walmart, you name it, as of December 5th, 2023. And the price will run you around $30. That is the MSRP. I know on some websites, they may sell it for a little bit less, but that is the standard price for this movie that originally released in 1985, which is crazy to think about, but not too long ago, with a runtime of 153 minutes, starring Whoopi Goldberg, Danny Glover, Margaret Avery, Adolph Ray Don Chong, and of course, Lawrence Fishburne, just to name a few. This cast is pretty stacked with the director, of course, Steven Spielberg, one of my favorite directors of all time, and the music by Quincy Jones. So this is really a passion project that people were able to come together with and kind of just bring something real to the table by adapting this book by Alice Walker. And as I mentioned before, if you are new here, before I go any farther, this is one of my 4K Blu-ray reviews, more of a home entertainment review of sorts, where I break down a 4K release into a few categories. We talk about, of course, my thoughts on the film, if I've seen it or not, and then I go into my audio and then my video quality portions, as well as if there are any special features that are worth mentioning. And, you know, all of these factors kind of tying together to let people know out there who are physical media collectors, whether or not you should add this to your collection. And spoiler alert, you definitely should. You know, the state of physical media nowadays is, it's not as terrible as what I think most outlets are kind of reaching out for, but there is cause for concern, especially with Best Buy announcing that they will not be selling Blu-rays in the first quarter of 2024. So like I said, you know, you can buy this at any other retailer. You can still buy it at Best Buy as of right now. You know, definitely buy your copy there if you prefer to shop there before it's gone altogether. But I just wanted to kind of get that premise for new and returning listeners to this show when it comes to my 4K review. So I'm going to just get straight into my initial thoughts for this film. So I think that The Color Purple is probably one of, if not my biggest blind spot as a movie fan. I've always been aware that it exists, but I've never bothered to watch it due to like my ever-growing backlog of films. I've yet to have watched it prior to watching it for this review. But the reason why I was not able to watch it, I just felt like it was a little inevitable that this movie would get lost in the shuffle of my backlog. And I figured now with the remake releasing on Christmas Day of 2023 this year, now is as good a time as any to revisit or just visit the original film for me for the first time. But being a huge Spielberg fan, I can't help but adore The Color Purple. I cannot help but adore this film for its captivating and emotionally charged storytelling. It tells this epic tale that's kind of nestled in a specific era, weaving together tragic sorrows, uplifting inspiration in a seamless manner. And the cinematic masterpiece of The Color Purple, it bravely ventures into a lot of challenging themes that you don't often see too much with films nowadays, including abuse, racial tension, and complex human relationships. More of that later on. But if you know, you know. I guess I'll kind of just say that for now. But with all that said, you know, it's able to hold a intense and a moving portrayal that leaves I feel like it leaves a mark on the viewer's heart. Whoever watches this movie, you are transformed in some type of way. It makes you feel a certain type of way. But in my opinion, when it comes to film adaptations of novels, I believe if a film adaptation succeeds when it inspires viewers to revisit the original book, like if a film adaptation can do that, it truly has accomplished its goal. But you can also say that, hey, a movie is just so good, like the adaptation is so good that you may not even want to read the book. And that's fine too, because I think there's two different parts of the spectrum. But I always found it to be a better experience, you know, if you do find a series or a film that you like that is based off of a book, you know, you're able to go through that journey. And if you want to continue doing more research about these characters and learn more about them, what better way than to read the original source material? But with all that in mind, I will definitely be adding Alice Walker's novel to my book collection. I know a lot of people out there don't have a lot of book collections, but I am one of the few. So let's get into the picture quality of this film. And I've mentioned this in the past, and I'll say it over and over and over. I will repeat it until the day I die. When it comes to something that Warner Brothers gets absolutely right, it is their impeccable 4K transfers of their classic films. I'm telling you, it's fantastic when it comes to the video transfers of these films. It almost feels as if I'm watching a new movie. And, you know, when it comes to a film like this, the presentation looks tonally balanced. You know, there's a lot of pleasing primary colors, especially the color purple, because it's very important for this film itself. But I think one thing that really stood out to me when it came to the video quality of this 4K transfer was the flesh tones of the actors. You know, since this is a primarily person of color film, it's always important to have like the level of visible detail and people with darker skin tones to make sure that they are appearing correctly on screen, whether it be, like I said, like their skin tone, their hair, their clothing, their eye color, things of that nature. So I think that is probably the biggest takeaway when it comes to the video quality, as well as the razor sharp imagery. The resolution it's excellent. You know, like the color purple itself literally just pops out. It, like I said, it feels like you were watching a new movie, not necessarily watching the remake, but it feels as if the color purple, the original, was brought into the new age. And, you know, there's a lot of colors that are able to maintain a level of visibility even during like darker segments of the film, like whether it's like thundering or lightning outside, or there's not as much light going or hitting the scene altogether. It's quite amazing. But let's move on to the audio section, which, again, I feel like the audio is just as good. I think from what I read from the information I was given about this movie, Warner Brothers has repurposed the DTS HD 5.1 mix from the previous original Blu-ray release, which is still a very good track. But when it comes to the audios altogether, when it comes to like the surround sounds, the ambient immersion of this film, especially with the Quincy Jones score, it just fills up the room. You know, there's a lot of singing in this film, and song is very important to this film itself. And the dialogue is crystal clear. There are some 4K transfers of older movies where I have had a very hard time hearing what the actors are saying. I had to like dial up the volume button on my remote, or on my TV, I should say. But through here, I would say, you know, I usually keep it around 14 to 15 volume on my sound bar. And from there, it was crystal clear. I didn't really need to put on the subtitles or anything. You know, the dialogue comes through clear. The music comes through ever so beautifully. And it's a great mix. You know, that dialogue, it's clear, it's understandable throughout the entire film. So I don't think people are going to have an issue there. As far as it comes to the special features, this is where it usually starts to teeter off. And we've kind of seen this in other Warner Brothers home releases, especially with Barbie. And I think I mentioned this earlier when I covered the 4K release of Barbie, that, you know, the audio, video, everything looks great. But when it comes to the special features, they are so lackluster. And honestly, I would say that the color purple, this 4K transfer, has more special features than the Barbie 4K home release. You have a few trailers for the color purple that you're able to watch through. You have the theatrical trailer. Of course, you get a digital copy, which is always nice, and a few other trailers during its initial marketing push. But there's also about 4 other pieces of special features here, including a conversation with the ancestors, the color purple from book to screen. That's around 26 minutes. I actually sat down and watched that in full. It was pretty awesome just having Alice Walker and Steven Spielberg kind of break down the process of how the movie came to be. And then there's a few other special features that run about 20 to 25 minutes. There's like 4 of them in total. So you're getting maybe a little bit closer to like an hour and a half mark of special features, which isn't the best thing in the world, because I really wanted them to go all out for this, because, you know, them obviously releasing this so close to the release of the remake of The Color Purple hitting again December 25th, 2023. I feel like there has to be more in that archive that people are or should be able to tack on to these home releases, because as much as I love these, you know, classic re-releases, the 4K releases, since this is Warner Brothers 100th year anniversary, I feel like they should be doing more. And, you know, when I was growing up, like home releases, you used to get so many like appendices, so much extra features that that isn't really around today. Like the only other 4K copy or Blu-ray package I can think of that gives you the bang for your buck is Oppenheimer. It comes with 3 hours of special features, deleted scenes, the whole 9. And it'll cost you around the same amount as The Color Purple on 4K. And of course, you still get that digital code. But with Warner Brothers, they've been kind of trimming out the fat with their 4K home releases, at least for re-releases. They just have been giving you the 4K disc and the digital code. They don't give you the Blu-ray disc, which kind of sucks because, if you want to lend the Blu-ray copy to somebody, while you keep the 4K copy, that's something you could do. But I kind of wish that there was more special features for this. Hopefully when the Color Purple remake comes out, because usually, classic movies or films get new versions of the same story every so often. We've seen it with movies like A Star is Born, but I'm hoping that the new Color Purple movie comes with more special features, more deleted scenes than the 4K release of this film, since the original, this is the first time that it's coming to 4K altogether. But those are just a few of my thoughts. But overall, it is a great package. And I think people should definitely pick this up because it is a great story. It's a story about womanhood. It's a story about family. It's a story about life. And I hope that you pick this one up and add it to your Blu-ray collection because it's pretty darn special. But with all that said, that does conclude today's episode. If you like what you heard on today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform of choice. And make sure to share an episode of our podcast with a friend, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Spread the love of the Film Optics podcast with a movie lover in need. And with all that said, that is a wrap on today's episode. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoy the show, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, all that social media garbage to stay in the know. And of course, we will be covering the Color Purple remake at some point. We were not able to see it early due to scheduling on both of our sides for me and Devin, but we will be covering it. It might hit after Christmas though, because it is coming to theaters on Christmas Day. So we're going to try to get that out for our our review of the remake for the Color Purple, hopefully closer to the new year, like maybe right beforehand. That actually might be the last review that we do for the year, but definitely keep a lookout because it will be coming to the podcast within the next month. Hopefully, just want to give you guys that disclaimer. But with all that said, I am your host, Christian, signing off. And remember, life is like a movie. So go out there and make it a blockbuster.